Welcome to Disturbing the Peace with Pastor John Amanchukwu. Now, I am normally wearing a suit and tie, a sport coat, and all that good stuff, but today I am advertising a little bit of my merch. This is a signature sweater, which also comes in a t-shirt. It says, "Was it something I said?" And this comes from a school board meeting and an address that I delivered in Asheville, North Carolina. If you would like to purchase one of these hoodies or t-shirts, you can go to my website, iknowgodmerch.com, iknowgodmerch.com, and pick up your t-shirt or hoodie today. Stay warm in this cold weather. All right, there we go. So I have a special guest that is on with me today. We hit it off many years ago. I believe we met at Fred Von Cannon's house for a fundraiser for Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest. And from the beginning, I knew that there was something special about her. She's a woman of God. She's a woman that walks in integrity, but she's also dynamite. I mean, listen, she will blow your socks off. I'm talking about Michelle Morrow. She's a Christian wife, mother of 5, registered nurse, educator, and conservative activist. She became engaged in civics 9 years ago after moving back to North Carolina and observing the dramatic decline in education, medical freedom, and election integrity in her home state. Michelle has spoken at numerous political events in North Carolina and beyond, and has been featured in local, national, and international news organizations, including CNN, my goodness, NBC, ABC, OAN, Sky News, and the BBC. She is affiliated with multiple grassroots groups as well as her county Republican Party. Michelle Morrow, thank you so much for joining Disturbing the Peace.
Oh, thank you, John. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you. Listen, I want to show your viral school board clip. Now, if you haven't seen this yet, this lady, this giant, I mean, she's what are you, 5'2"?
Yeah.
She's 5'2", and I can say that and get away with it because my wife is 5 foot even. Sometimes I say that she's 4'11", but she's really 5 foot even. But Michelle is 5'2", but when she gets behind the podium, she turns green, and it's like the anointing of God comes over her, and you better watch out. Take a look at this footage.
I've been really confused over the last 5 years as to why we spend 45 minutes to an hour of every public meeting talking about how great everyone is and how great everything is in the schools, and now I've figured it out. I figured it out because all these people came here to defend you all from hurtful words. This is obnoxious. Let me just say, there is one goal for the educational system. It should be to prepare children to enter careers, to be productive members of society. It is not a counseling session. It is not a self-help area. It is not somewhere to find yourself, and we should not be led by the children, for goodness sake. The children are called dependents for a reason. They depend on us who have fully developed brains. You cannot feel your way through life. The issues that we are talking about, we are bringing you statistics. We are talking about scholastics. We are talking about funding. We are talking about busing. We are talking about trying to figure out how to make our children be as successful as possible. And I am sure that that is your goal. And what we have been called tonight is what they're claiming that we're saying to children. We're having an adult conversation. There are not children in this room. We aren't going into the schools and calling them names. They call us Marxists and hateful and bigots and everything else under the sun. Well, let me tell you, less than 5% of the entire population of North Carolina identifies as LGBTQ. You guys all claim you want democracy. Well, you know what democracy is? It's the majority plus one. It's 50 plus 1. You know what? More than 50% of the people in this state claim that they believe in God, Almighty God, who made us male and female, God who made marriage between a man and a woman, God who said that we must protect our children. The fact that we can stand up here and we can brag about all of the wonderful graduations, but we know the statistics. 50% of children did not pass their end of grade tests. What are we celebrating? We have children coming up here telling us how horrible the mental health crisis is. Why? Most of us went to public school, and all of our peers are not in mental health crises. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to our children? I'm going to say we are discussing things with them that they are not emotionally, intellectually, and morally able to handle. That is what is causing the anxiety. That is what is causing the depression. That is what is causing the confusion. We need our children to be able to be children, to be able to be innocent, to be able to enjoy childhood and not know all of the drama and all of the difficulties in adult life. That is what we want. We want our children to be able to read and write and to think for themselves, and we demand that the children who fear God are protected in your schools.
We demand that the children who fear God are protected in schools. What else can you say? I mean,
That's right.
I know that you are running for office now, and I don't know when you decided to run for office. I really don't care when you decided, but that, my friend, is a campaign slogan. Because what we see today is that there's an intentional plan to eliminate morality, in particular the Bible and truth, from the public square, from our public schools, and to diminish anyone that uplifts standards. And
Yep.
so for you to make that bold statement to protect children who fear God, which you're pretty much saying that these children have been trained up in the way that they should go, so that when they're old, they will not depart from it. They have parents who are Christians. That means something, and that does have value. Michelle, I want to start here. You said that 50% of students failed their end of grade tests in North Carolina. Let's start there. Give me more information around that and the failure of the public school system in North Carolina.
Yeah, well, that was the 2022 statistic. And it's basically they were bragging about a 93% graduation rate. But when you looked in deeper, you realized that, okay, yeah, 93% of our students walked across that stage and got a diploma. But what does it mean, John, when they cannot pass? This is not. Did they get into accelerated classes? This is not, were they the top echelon of those around the state, around the country that did? This is basic, compulsory, just mastery of math and reading, period. This is just the ability to be able to function as an adult.
Yes, I agree. What's the problem? Why are children falling behind? We understand the learning loss of the pandemic and what took place there. You know, I believe that more could have been done to mitigate that. We could have been more proactive. But what do you think the underlying issue is as it relates to why students are falling behind in North Carolina?
Well, I don't think I know. I know that we have had our children in an experimental lab for the last 20 years, not just here in North Carolina, but around the country. But I'll tell you, it's Common Core. It's the U.S. Department of Education determining what our curriculum is going to be. And that curriculum is a politically charged, racially divisive, sexually explicit, and academically weak. And as a matter of fact, we have also taught our kids that you are not responsible for your own actions. We have lowered the bar of expectation, not just academically, but also personally. And if we really look at from the medical standpoint of what has been happening since the early 2000s, we have been telling our kids, the reason you can't obey and you can't be respectful and you can't do your work is you have a diagnosis. So here's a pill. And we have watched the pharmaceutical industry get more and more involved in our schools to the point now that we had to pass a law, right, this year, and we had to override a veto of Governor Cooper to stop what puberty blockers and gender hormone replacement therapy and even surgeries that are destroying the bodies of our children. Because here's the issue. Children, and we can look back at Obama and what he did with restorative justice as well, because his idea with restorative justice is we just need to say children that are minorities, they can't act right in the classroom. So don't hold them to another standard. You just need to just turn a blind eye to what they're doing, because if you expect for them to sit in their seat and keep their hands to themselves and do their schoolwork, you are being racist. And if you call them out on it, then that just proves that your hatred for somebody that doesn't look like you.
So President Obama believed that, depending on the color of your skin and your pigmentation, that will determine whether or not you're able to be obedient and submissive in a classroom. That's what he believed. And we're pretty much carrying that same thought process forward today.
Yes, and it's actually a two-tier problem, which you've discussed a lot, is the fact that we have so many fatherless homes, and especially in the Black community, right? But that's happening all over, John, because as the divorce rate has skyrocketed across, even in the Christian church, as the divorce rate goes up, more and more kids are not living with both of their parents. But the premise being they're not being disciplined at home, and so you can't expect them to be disciplined in the classroom. I say the opposite is true. I say that children long to know what the boundaries are. They long to know that there is a consistency. And if they are not getting that consistency at home, we should absolutely be giving it to them at school, because children feel anxious and they feel worried when they don't know that the adult is in charge in the school, and they don't know from day to day what is going to be expected or how one of their classmates is going to react or act out. We are doing them a huge disservice. And this is the other thing I will say. If we do not teach children when they're in school to be self-controlled and to take responsibility for themselves, they're never going to learn it. You're not going to learn it as a 25-year-old. You need to learn it as a child. And we are doing a disservice when we don't have a code of conduct for the students as well as the parents and the staff in our public school system.
So what should a child, or in particular a high school graduate, know and be able to do when they graduate from a high school in North Carolina?
In my opinion, after 13 years, 9 months out of the year, 5 days out of the week, 8 hours out of a day, they should be ready to graduate on Saturday and enter the career of their choice on Monday. They should be prepared. Now, if they want to go to a 4-year college because their career is going to require that, they should also be prepared for that. But it's time for us to recognize that children at 18 years old, they should be ready to be financially independent and able to trained up to pursue something that's not only going to be make them financially successful, but also going to be personally rewarding. This is what school should be about. You master the basics of math and reading in elementary school, and then in middle school and high school, we start offering them paths, whether it's work study programs, internships, whatever it might be, and we need to work with the businesses in the communities where they live so that people could live and work and remain in the towns where they grew up. Rural North Carolina is really suffering because so much of our growth is in our cities. And so they're having to leave where they grew up to come to the city and to work and to live, the life that the government wants us to live, which makes us more controllable, right? Because we're all going to be within the confines of the same, 12-mile radius or whatever it might be. We need our children to be critically thinking. We need them to know true history. We need them to know the truth about economics and financial literacy. We need them to know that they have been created with a gift and a talent. And it's our job as the educational system to help them to make that be something that they can give back to the community, and they can engage in the community with their gifts and their talents.
What are your thoughts on DEI, and how has it impacted classrooms in North Carolina and across the country?
Well, many ways. It's a great question because what they've done, and this has come down from the US Department of Education, they have determined, and everybody needs to know this, we only get 10% of our annual budget from the federal government. Now, that's not including the grants that everybody asks for, but I'm going to tell you this. Every dollar that comes from the US Department of Education comes with chains attached to it. And the chains in this case are with DEI. They have totally controlled and determined who will go to which schools based completely on the color of their skin. They are saying that you are compliant and you are going to be praised and you are going to get your money when you have so many Black children and so many brown children and so many white children in a classroom, which is why we have kids being bused over an hour in the morning and an hour every afternoon to go to these schools. And that is one of the problems, because when you aren't in a community, a school should be the light of hope for every community. I realize that there are communities where parents cannot go and help in the schools. So you know what? We need to say in those elementary schools, if their parents aren't helping them to do reading and stuff, why don't we have two teachers in the classroom in kindergarten through 5th grade, right? If you have issues with, violence or there's drugs or whatever, you live in a dangerous area, why don't we have more counselors? Why don't we have people coming into that community and talking to these kids? Why don't we focus on boys and girls clubs being there after school? Why don't we invite the churches in to do after school programs to tell these kids the truth about the hope that they have if they will study in school and what the great, strides that they can make for themselves? That's what we need to do. There's so many different districts and different lifestyles and that are represented throughout all of North Carolina. It's not a one size fits all, but our focus needs to be that our kids understand that education is the key to a future and a success. And it's hard work, right? I mean, we can't
Yes.
just be expected to just skirt through life and then think that all of a sudden one day when they're 18 or 19, they're going to have a strong work ethic. It's not going to happen.
Would you agree that we have an achievement gap issue in North Carolina?
100%. Mm-hmm.
And what should we do to close that gap?
I think what we do to close that gap is we train our teachers to be able to teach kids how to read and do math. And honestly, we need to take all of this social stuff, all of this extra stuff out of our elementary school. Here's my take. Children want to learn. And in elementary school, they are more than willing to say if they don't understand something and to ask for help. But if our kids have not mastered reading and writing and math by the time they leave 5th grade, they're never going to master it. Because by the time you get to middle school, you are going to pretend that you know what's going on and you're just going to be pushed through the levels. So in my opinion, there's another thing, because I was a missionary. My husband and I were missionaries in Mexico for 4 years. So I do speak Spanish. 3 of my 5 kids were born in Mexico City. And one of the other problems that we have in our school system is, while it is beautiful that North Carolina has attracted so many people from around the world, we are a very diverse state. There are so many parents and students that do not have a mastery of English. And when they start school, that is a huge tax on the classrooms that they're in. Many of our students, I'm talking to teachers across the state, and they say this is so bad because these kids, it's not just Spanish. It's coming here in whatever language is their primary language. If they have not mastered English, they're literally sitting on computers all day long. And the teachers are not able to communicate with them. The teachers cannot communicate with the parents. So we're just shoving them along from day to day to day, to year. And I have a comprehensive plan that we need to help these students. And in my opinion, we should have these students in an English intensive classrooms for the first year that they're here. And they focus completely on English, and they can do other things like PE or, art or whatever it might be. And if they're really good at math, and we get back to the basics of math where it's actually numbers and right and wrong answers, they could probably do that too. But we need to evaluate where they are and let them master English. And I think we should even use our schools in the evening time and to help the parents to learn English. And at the same time, potentially the kids could be tutored while the parents are being taught English, so that they can assimilate into the lifestyle of being an American, as well as they can be a part of their child's educational process.
All right. So we want high quality students.
Yes.
But in order to have high quality students, you need high quality teachers.
You do.
So what are we going to do to reach, retain, and train and develop high quality teachers?
Well, I really think that we need to look at the budget of North Carolina education, because we are 60%, over 60% of our state budget goes to education. So we literally spent last year over $10 billion. There is zero excuse why our children cannot perform. But what's happening is this money is
Did you
going
say
in
10 million or 10 billion?
billion with a B.
We spent $10 billion. Listen to this. I want everyone to stop what you're doing and just listen to what she just said. We spent $10 billion on education in North Carolina, which represents 60% of our overall budget in North Carolina. But we still have an achievement gap. We are still graduating students who still can't read on grade level and do basic math. The issue can't be finances or budgeting and funding. Michelle, what's the problem?
The problem is where the money is going. And as we talked about before, the U.S. Department of Education, in order to give us money or to give us grants, they demand that we have these different departments, whether it's DEI or Common Core or SEL, which is social emotional learning, or before it was CRT and it's the trainings. The money is going to these administrators and into these programs that have nothing to do with teaching our kids academically. And that's what needs to change. And that's the main goal of the superintendent. One of the reasons I'm running, it's curriculum and budget, right? Those are the two things that the superintendent has oversight over of all of our 115 counties. And what I say is we need to get in there and we need to look very carefully at where we're spending our money, and we need to streamline it and say these things that cannot statistically prove that they are helping our children academically and with career preparedness, they need to be done. So if we need to pay ourselves out of contracts with these bad curriculum writers or whatever it might be, then so be it. We deal with that. But what we need to focus on is academics first and foremost. And as I said, if our children, if you've mastered reading, writing, and math by the time you're in the 5th grade, you can learn anything, because everything else is based off of that. And so we need to get out all of this training that, we have to go through for everybody to talk about how they feel in their bodies and, how they feel about the color of their skin and how they're all the surveys that we're spending money on. There's so much overhead, and people need to know this.
And so you're talking about places where we've wasted money, like the equity office, right?
Yeah.
Which we've spent, close to $10 million now since 2013?
Yeah. So here's a statistic just from Wake County. Wake County, 2 years ago, we only got $2.1 million from the federal government. And you know how much we spent just on salaries for the DEI department?
How much?
1.3 million. And remember, that's just salaries. That's not benefits. I mean, the benefits for our state employees often are more costly than the salaries themselves. And the other thing people need to know, while my opponent has been the superintendent, the last 2 years, the DPI has given 60% raises to those making over $100,000.
Wow.
And do you know what they've given to the teachers? 2%.
How much?
2%. 2% one year and 3% the next.
You oftentimes hear that North Carolina education It's underfunded. We need to pay the teachers more money. The teachers aren't making enough money, and therefore there's a lack of morale within educators in North Carolina. They need support. They need support. But for you to say that 60% of our overall budget in North Carolina goes towards education, $10 billion, and that the teachers aren't getting adequate raises, but everyone who's in the Pink Palace downtown Raleigh, they are making big money, those who are making six figures and higher. So the issue is not so much what's going on in the General Assembly. It's what's going on essentially in the Pink Palace downtown Raleigh, and who's really making the money and who isn't. And so you're running for office. You have put it all on the line. You know, you're too far gone. You're almost like an airplane committed to flight.
That's right.
Say everything works out and you win on day one. When you walk into office, you're sworn in, all of the above. Give me three things that you plan on doing from the onset.
Yeah. I'm gonna work with the General Assembly, and we're gonna defund DEI, and we're gonna get rid of Common Core, and we're gonna return to academic success, and we're going to have a code of conduct in our schools. And in my opinion, it needs to be signed by not only, as I said, the staff and the students. It needs to be signed by the parents, because what I'm hearing from the teachers is they're not getting administrative backup when there are problems in the classroom. The administrators tell the teachers to call the parents, and then there's this angst and tension between the parents and the teachers, and that needs to stop, because the way that children are successful is when teachers and parents and students are in this triangle of education, and they're all seeking the same goal. So I'm going to fight really hard to strengthen that bond between parent, teacher, and student, and I think that's going to go far. And the other thing that we really need to do, I'm going to go after Dale Falwell after he's done, and whether he's the nominee or not, for governor, I'm going to ask for him or somebody in his great Treasury department to work with me to go through with a fine-tooth comb what's happening within the budget of the educational system, and we're going to find that money. And I'll tell you what, we're also going to make partnerships with. There's a lot of great schools that are that actually have trade programs and internships, and they're working with businesses in their communities. That needs to be on every county. That needs to be an option for every student. So we're going to focus our time and our money on character development and on training up the next generation to be able to be productive members of society. And everybody needs to know, money is not the end goal. It is the tool that we're going to use to make North Carolina educational system the best in the country. And we're going to push back. I'm going to be a firewall. I'm going to be a firewall between the U.S. Department of Education, and I'm going to work with the General Assembly to get control of our curriculum and our budget back where it belongs per our Constitution. And that's with the North Carolina General Assembly here in North Carolina.
What steps would you take to address the mental health challenge that we're experiencing in many of our schools in North Carolina?
That's a wonderful question, because we know that our children really are suffering. Suicide rates are up. The amount of drug use is up. The amount of children that are being diagnosed with anxiety and depression and other things. And so this is my take. When a child is suffering, the entire family is suffering. So I have actually gone to the school board for years now and said every school has got to have at least one school nurse. I'd like to see a couple. I'd like to see every school having a couple of counselors. But here's the difference. The counseling is not going to happen within the school. What happens is, if we think that there is a child that is struggling with issues, we should go immediately to the parents, bring the parents into the discussion, and the school should be working with DHHS to field this out of the schools. The schools are not the place to be dealing with the medical and the emotional and the psychological issues of our students. Yes, we can absolutely help in seeing that there is something that needs to be addressed, but the parents have to be the first call that is made. And the other thing that I'm going to demand is that no adult is ever in a room with a child by themselves. And I don't care if that's a teacher or a principal or a coach or a counselor or a nurse. We have got to protect our children's innocence, and we need for there to be more than one person there so we know what's being told to these kids. Duke University and Medical Center has a very lucrative contract with the North Carolina school system, and we need to get our medical system out of our schools.
Finally, how do you plan to measure the success of your tenure as superintendent?
Well, if I can get Common Core out of the schools and get back to the basic sound moral education that's stated in in our Constitution, that would be wonderful. If I can raise teacher salary and cut many of the positions that are in this higher echelon that are making so much money that don't have any direct impact. Listen, if you want to work for the school system, I'll say, okay, well, we need teachers, or we need reading help down here, or we need somebody to train them, in this or that. Fine, you can still have a job within the educational system and use your expertise, but it needs to be used specifically and directly to help train teachers, to give them the resources that they need so that our children, every child in North Carolina, should end up graduating and be able to pursue their career goals. And I'll say, even with children that are exceptional learners, they should be learning life skills, right? They should be in contact with organizations outside that will hire people that have developmental, specialties, and they still can have an incredible quality of life, right? Not everyone is going to go on and become an engineer. So it's time for us to have something for everyone in our schools. And so if I see children that instead of graduating and just going on to minimum wage jobs, if they're pursuing careers, if they're able to own their own businesses, if they're able to be trained up by local organizations and end up going right into a career that's going to be able to provide for them and a family in the future, then we will have been successful. If we can fill all of these slots that we have missing in schools as educators and as bus drivers, and if we have people who love their job and can't wait to get into the school in the morning, whether it's staff or whether it's students, then my job will have been successful. There needs to be a complete overhaul of the attitude of education. It shouldn't be a begrudging. It shouldn't be a drudgery. It shouldn't be, that people are worried about their safety. It should be that this is a place where I am excited to come. I feel like I have friends here, and I can't wait to come and see what I'm going to be able to accomplish and what these kids are going to be able to accomplish under my leadership as a teacher.
I'm going to have you mention how can people support you and follow you, but I want to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Favorite color?
Purple.
Favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere at the beach.
Are you scared of heights?
Yes.
Don't feel bad on that. I am too.
Yeah,
I
am. I've gotten more so as I get older.
Don't feel bad. When I went to Asheville that time, I was like, man, Lord, why do I have to go here? Because I don't like driving up mountains and coming down mountains. So don't feel bad about the heights part. Chick-fil-A or Bojangles?
Chick-fil-A.
What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas or Easter?
What's a dream job for you?
The superintendent of public instruction.
There it is. Ding, 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 ding. She wins the prize. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on with me today, for disturbing the peace with me, and for speaking truth to power. You are so wonderful. You're gifted. You're knowledgeable. I'm just amazed at the anointing that God has placed upon your life for you to stand behind the lectern at a school board meeting and to share just from the heart truth and what you've seen being an advocate for education for several years. It really means a lot to North Carolinians. It means a lot to me. And so how can people follow you and go and support you?
Thanks. You can go to my website. It's michellemorrownc.com. And Michelle has one L, so it's Michele, Morrow with an O, nc.com. And I am on Facebook at Michelle Morrow NC. I'm on Twitter at Michelle Morrow NC. I'm on Instagram at Michelle Morrow NC. And really what we need, John, is I'm willing to be out there and to be the front runner, and to basically take the arrows and kind of set us a path, and to find other people who are the experts in their field. I don't claim to know everything about education, but I do know this. I know that we have failed our students and we're failing ourselves if we do not prepare the next generation to be critically thinking. And so I am passionate about that. And I need everybody that has sat back and looked with awe and looked with disgust and wondered, oh my word, what is happening to North Carolina and to our country? I need you to sign up today. I need you to go to my website and sign up to be a volunteer and tell other people about it. Work at the polls, because we need to win this. We need to win this for our future as a state and our future as a nation. The left has been using our school system for far too long to tell our children that lies about themselves and about their country and about their future. And so it's time for us to stand up and say no more.
We need to win this, and we will win this. We know that our hope is in Jesus Christ, but there's
Amen.
much that we have to do as we occupy until he comes. And one of the things that we can do is take action and run for office. Do what Michelle and I have done for several years. Go out to a school board meeting and speak and address these issues. And I ask that everyone would come alongside Michelle and support wherever you can. I am going to bring on many people on my podcast to address issues pertaining to the upcoming election, and many politicians will come on. We might have the Democrat candidate come on if they're willing to answer the questions. And so I'm open to allow anyone to receive a platform to be able to share their message. We all should have equal time to state our case, and may the best woman and or man win. We need the right people in office for the right time, because we all have a job to do. Whatever you do, my friends, don't forget to disturb the peace. God bless you.